links from the chat box itself. Understand guys? The people who are watching from the YouTube, so please get those the last 2 session of recordings from the Ashok IT YouTube channel of live section guys. Okay, the people who are attending in the Zoom session, so just get those 2 links from the chat box. Okay, yeah. So as part of our if anybody newly joined for today, so the last 2 sessions we did not covered much more. We just covered the course curriculum and the course details and what we are going to get as part of this training program and what would be the plan of the course and all these things which we have discussed in the last 2 sessions. And as part of our yesterday session guys, we just started the introduction about the framework concept. Okay, so frameworks are nothing but an ready-made softwares developed on top of existing technologies, which we have discussed about this point on yesterday. Okay, existing technologies such as for what? JDBC, servlets, and JSPs, right? If you guys working with what the technologies means, okay, while working with the technologies, guys, developing the projects will take more time and it will have like as in the more burden on the programmers. So as I already told you, so when you guys are working with what JDBC technology, okay, you need to write a logic for opening the connection and closing the connection. You need to write an exception handling logic as well, and you cannot have an option to write the database independent queries. Okay, so those are the problems with JDBC technologies. And when it comes for the servlets and JSP, okay, so you guys need to create a controller class explicitly. You need to redirect the view pages from the controller explicitly. Okay, and you guys are mixing up the presentation logic inside the business logic itself. Okay, so presentation logic means the things which you can see on the screen is called presentation logic. When you guys are working with the servlets and JSP technology, guys, you are writing mostly HTML logic inside the servlet logic, right or not? That will becomes for what? Tightly coupled between for what? Business logic and presentation logic. Okay, these are the some of the problems of existing technologies, guys. Okay, for developing the projects. In order to overcome those problems, the third party vendors developed some sort of framework softwares, right or not? What are those framework softwares, guys? What are those framework softwares? What are those the framework softwares? What are those the framework softwares, guys? What are the framework softwares, guys, which we have discussed on yesterday? During the project development, when you're during the project development, we will be the having some sort of problems while working with what are the technologies of JDBC, servlets, and JSPs. In order to overcome that problems, the third party vendors developed some sort of a framework softwares, guys, on top of the technologies. Okay, so those are categorized into for what? 3 types. One is for what? ORM frameworks, that is called object relational mapping. And the another kind of the framework we can call it as an for what? Web application frameworks. And the third category of the framework is called for what? Application framework, guys. So ORM frameworks, object relational mapping, which is an extension of JDBC. So ORM framework is an extension of JDBC, guys. Okay. So why? Because in the ORM frameworks, you no need to worry about opening the connections and closing the connections. Okay. You no need to worry about handling the exceptions, and you no need to worry about writing the data. So you can write like as in the database independent queries. You no need to worry about versioning of database columns. Okay. And all these things. Okay, all these things which you will get a lot of benefits when you are working with what? ORM frameworks. Okay, so you will be the writing the database logics with the help of Java objects. Will be writing, so you will be the writing for what? The persistence logic using for what? Java objects case. So that is called object relational mapping. frameworks. So you people might heard about these two kinds of the ORM tools such as JP and Hibernate. So these are the most popular ORM frameworks are used for projects development. Okay, so in the projects development guys, mostly we will be the using these ORM frameworks such as JPA and Hibernate. Understand guys? So you can write, you can develop the persistence logic Java, so Java object based persistence logics guys. Okay, you can write like as an the Java objects based persistence logics which you can develop with the help of ORM framework. ORM framework is an extension of which technology? Can you guys please confirm? ORM framework is an extension of which technology? ORM
JDBC.
framework is a extension of which technology?
JDBC.
JDBC. Okay, so web application framework is an extension of which technologies? Servlets and JSPs. Servlets and the JSPs, right or not? So what are the popular web application frameworks which you have heard about in the market? Struts and the JSF and Spring MVC, right or not? These are all the web application frameworks, guys. Okay, when you guys working with what? When you guys working with what web application frameworks, you no need to bother about common logics required for every web application, such as validations logic, internationalization logics, exception handling logics. So those logics will comes as and for what? Ready made in the web application framework softwares, guys. Understand, guys? Web application frameworks are extension for what technologies? Come on, guys. Web application framework is an extension of what technologies?
Struts and JS.
No, servlets and JSP.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, servlets and JSPs. Web application frameworks. You people might heard about this struts and the JSFs and Spring MVC, sir. Okay, out of these two, out of these three, the nowadays the Spring MVC becomes very popular in the market. So in the some of the projects are still using struts 2.x, guys. Okay, struts 2.x in the legacy projects. Okay, they are using still for what? Struts 2.x, guys. So the people, the when you guys are developing the new kind of projects nowadays, they will be the opting for what? Spring MVC. Understand, guys? For the new projects development will be the opting as and for what? Spring MVC, guys. So what is the third category of the framework we have? Application level framework. So which is nothing but an Spring. Why the Spring will comes under as an application level framework? Because the Spring is developed on top of JDBC, servlets, and JSP. Okay. So why? Because guys, by using like as in the Spring framework, we can develop any kind of an application, guys, that can be of standalone application, web application, or distributed application. Is that true or not? These are the things which we have discussed on yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Hope you guys are clear up to know whatever we have discussed for the yesterday's session so far. So Spring will comes under the category of which kind of framework? ORM framework or web application framework or
Application
application
framework.
framework? So
Application.
Application
application
framework.
framework. So by using the application framework, what kind of an applications we can design?
All JDBC, solvers, JSP.
Ah, so all the applications, guys, we can develop by using the application frameworks, guys. We can develop all the standalone applications, standalone applications, and then web applications and distributed applications. Web application means customer to business communication. Distributed applications means business to business communication. Simple.
Sir,
Understand,
can we
guys?
say distributed applications also can develop on struts and JSF, please?
No. Struts can be used. Struts and the JSF is used for only for the web applications. Okay, only for web layer we
Then
can
what are the
develop.
technologies that we are using on distributed technology?
Distributed technologies such as for what? So Spring REST.
Mhm.
Understand? Spring
Okay.
REST. Okay, JMS. Okay, right or not? So all this will comes under for what? Distributed technologies.
Spring REST means Spring also under comes into.
No. So we have some distributed technologies such as EJB, web services. Okay, Corba. Okay, Cobra. And then we have these are the some of the distributed technologies, guys. Common broker architectural model, that is Cobra. Okay. So EJB, distributed tech EJB, Cobra, and then followed with what? Web services. These three things will which will comes under for what? Distributed technologies. Nowadays, out of these three, nowadays the web services are very popular in the market. That's all. Okay, by using the Spring framework, by using like as in the Spring framework, guys, you can take for you can develop the persistence logic so you can develop the database logic, and you can develop the web layer components. Okay, web layer components you can develop for what? Distributed applications of REST as well, RESTful web services. Understand? So Spring is having a lot of modules, guys. So you can take it up for what? Selective modules, and you can develop the particular category of an application. Simple. Okay. Yeah. Hope you guys are comfortable up to now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spring is developed on top of for what? All the three technologies of JDBC, servlets, and JSP. Right or not? Yes. So now we will talk about what exactly the Spring framework is. Spring is an Java based open source framework, guys. Open source means it's a free of cost in order to download the Spring software, guys. Right or not? Open source means it is the free of cost to download, and also the source code of the Spring software also exposed to us. Understand, guys? Understand my point or not? Spring is a Java based application framework. Okay, Java based application framework which will comes as an for what? Open source. Open source means free of cost to be download that particular Spring software, and also the source code of the project also get be exposed to the programmers. Understand, guys? Everybody? Spring is in the Java based framework or not? Spring is a Java based framework
Yes,
or
sir.
not? Yes, it is an open source as well. Okay. Yes. So the next point is the Spring framework will comes under for what? Enterprise application development case. Why? Because means as you know that one, by using like the Spring framework, you can develop the standalone applications, web applications, and distributed applications case. Okay. When it comes for the ORM is only for what? Developing the persistence logic of an applications. Okay, when it comes for web application frameworks such as Struts and the JSF, which are helpful for developing the web components such as controllers. Okay, controllers, filters, okay, listeners, all such things which you can develop with the help of JSF or Struts framework. But whereas in the Spring, you can develop any kind of you can develop the persistence logic, you can develop the web layer components, you can develop for what? Distributed components as well. So that is the reason behind the Spring framework. We can call it as an for what? Enterprise application development, guys, we can say. Understand, guys? Everybody clear or not? Everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Fine. So, and the next part is, so next one is Spring is on the modularized framework, sir. As I already told you, sir, Spring is on the Spring framework contains for what? Lot of sub projects. Understand, guys? Lot of sub modules we can say. Okay, lot of sub projects or lot of sub modules are there. Spring is on for what? Umbrella project. Spring is on for what? Umbrella project. You have a lot of sub modules such as Spring core module, Spring AOP module, Spring MVC module, okay, Spring REST module, Spring JDBC module, Spring ORM module. So that is a reason. So Spring framework is on for what? Modularized framework, guys, because you can take the selective modules, guys. You can take the selective modules from the Spring framework for developing the projects. Understand, guys? Understand or not? So you can take like as in the selective modules for developing the projects, guys, out of all the modules. Okay, lot of modules are there, guys. Lot of modules are there. Okay, so let me show you that part. Okay, just a minute. Let me share that the screen. Yeah, observe very carefully, guys. Go to the Google and the Spring. Just search for what? Just search for what? Spring. Spring dot start IO. Okay. Yeah. So see guys, Spring Boot is in the Spring Boot is see. If you go for what? Spring Boot is in the module. Okay. Spring Framework, Spring Cloud, Spring Cloud Data Flow, Spring Data, Spring Integration, Spring Batch, Spring Security. View all the projects. We can go. If once you click on the Spring framework here, all these are for what? All these are for what, guys? See, on the left hand side, we got a lot of modules or not? Come on, guys. On the left hand side, we can see for what? Lot of modules or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So these are the modules of Spring framework. That is a reason. So the Spring is on for what? Modularized framework. So you can take for what? Selective modules for developing a certain components in for what? Projects development. Understand, guys, everybody? Understand or not? Okay. Yeah. Fine. So that is the reason behind the Spring will with the Spring framework. We can call it as an for what? Modularized framework, guys, because Spring will contains for what? Lot of sub modules. Okay, by using the selective modules, you can take for what? All the modules for the project development, or else you can take for what? Selective modules for developing the specific components in the project. Simple. Okay, that is the thing, guys. And the Spring framework is developed based on the simplicity of POJOs. What do you mean by POJOs, sir? POJO stands for what? Plain old Java object, guys. So plain old Java object. It is nothing but a Java class, guys, which doesn't extends or implements any kind of predefined classes or interfaces from Spring library. Okay, so the one important point, guys, everybody to be focused here. Okay, so when you guys working with the Spring, guys, you will be the creating a simple and plain Java classes only. Okay, you will be the creating for what? Simple and plain Java classes only. You no need to worry about extending or implementing any kind of interface or the class from the Spring library. Always your class will be of and what? Independent. So that is the reason. So the Spring framework, in the Spring framework, guys, all the classes will be built in the form of POJOs. Simplicity of POJOs. Simple. Understand, guys, everybody? Understand or not?
Sir, can you please repeat again?
So POJO stands for what? POJO stands for plain old Java object, guys. POJO stands for what? Plain old Java object. When you guys working with the Spring framework, guys, you will be creating a simple Java class without extending or implementing any sort of interface or the class from Spring library. Let's take a simple example to
Correct.
better
Yes.
understanding. Okay, so for example, when you are working with what servlet technology, in order to create a servlet class, you need to extend or implement a servlet interface or generic servlet class or HTTP servlet class. Is that true or not?
Correct.
Correct. But so when you are working with the Spring framework, programmer no need to force, extend or implement any sort of interface or the class from Spring library. Okay, always your class will be of an for what? Simple Java class.
Mm,
Understand, guys?
mm.
Understand? That is the principle of simplicity of POJOs in Spring framework. Understand, guys,
Yeah,
everybody?
I think it extends like instead of extends is taking jars
Ah, yes.
or
So
else
you know, so
import.
the thing here is, so you no need to bother about your class, no need to extend or implement any kind of third party related libraries and classes. Simple. That is called simplicity of POJOs. POJO stands for plain old Java object. Your class doesn't require it doesn't require to extend or implement any kind of classes or interfaces from Spring library, guys.
Sir, one
Simple.
straight question, please. What it is covering here rather than extending or interface? Is it covering through the jars or is it covering through the Port
Is it is
statement.
covering through as an for what? Spring beans. Okay, that you will get to know the later. Okay. Simplicity of the POJOs means you will be the creating a simple Java class. That Java class will be considering as an for what? Spring bean by the Spring container, guys. Okay, that we will talk about later in upcoming slide. Okay, but as of now, for the time being, what you can understand is in entire Spring framework, you will be creating a simple Java classes as for what? Simple independent Java classes. That's all.
Just one answer, please, because I'm attending the interview. So, if any straight question, just answer for that. Like, is it covering through the jars or how, sir?
Yeah, that is what I mean to say, sir. So you will be creating a simple Java class, sir. Okay, that Java class will be covered by the Spring through Spring container.
Okay.
Okay, how the Spring container will cover that Java class as a Spring bean. Simple. Understand?
Okay.
So it is not at all covering through jar. It is not at all covering through jars. It will be a covering through for what? A Spring beans by the Spring container.
Sir, what
Understand?
will be there in beans, please?
Yeah. We'll come to that part later, sir. Step by step. Okay. Step by step. We'll come to that part. Okay. Yeah. So, but as of now, for the time being, we are in the introduction part, right? So in the entire Spring framework, you will be creating a simple POJOs only. Simple. Okay. POJOs means your class doesn't require to extend or implement any sort of third party related classes or interfaces. Simple as that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so the next important thing in the Spring framework is Spring is having the Spring is having an inbuilt feature called dependency injection. What do you mean by dependency injection, sir? Simple. So when you are developing like as in the classes in the project, tell me. So your class will so your class requires some other class objects or not? Come on, guys. So let's say for example. Obviously, right? So definitely. So whenever you guys are creating one class in your project, guys, so definitely that class will requires for what? Some other class services. In order to get those services into your class, definitely you need to create an object of certain classes or not. Let's take an example, sir, here. Okay. So let me take as in the pen here. Okay. So you are developing one Java class. Okay. So, and you have some other classes are also available in your project. Let's consider. There are some other Java classes are also available in your project, guys. So something for what? 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And this is the new class which you are creating. Okay. So in order to build some logic in this class, we required some other class services such as one class object is so one class required, second class also is required, third class was also required. Now, so tell me, in order to get the services of this class means, in order to get like some services from these classes means, definitely you guys need to create an object of certain classes inside the fourth class or not? Come on, guys. Agree? Agree or not? So you are trying to build like as in the fourth class, guys. In order to write some sort of logic in your class, so you require some other class services.
Correct.
Okay, you require some other class services. In order to access those services, definitely you guys need to create an object of that respective class inside the fourth class or not?
Yeah.
Definitely. In order to get the access of those services, in order to get the access of the in order to get the services of those classes in the fourth class, definitely you need to create such a class objects in our fourth class itself. Without creating an object, so can you get the services access in the fourth class?
No.
No, you can't, guys. Okay, in this process, typically who will be the taking care of creating a certain class objects in the new class? Programmer, right or not? So sir, think about without Spring perspective, sir. Okay, if you think about without Spring perspective, whatever the things I'm talking here, So those things will be the in terms of core Java and advanced Java. Okay. So let's say, for example, you are creating a new class and this class requires some other class services. So in order to get those services, definitely I need to create an object of this class. I need to create an object of these classes into the new class, right or not? Right or not? Right? So without creating an objects, I cannot get the services from these classes. Agree?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So basically in this process, programmer need to create an object of those certain classes inside the new class. And the programmer only need to create such an objects inside this new class, guys. Right or not? In this process, tell me which objects will be created first? Dependent objects will be created first or main object will be created first? Main object means newly created class. And dependent objects means one class, second class, and the third class. Tell me, in this process in normal in core Java, tell me whenever the A class is depending upon the B class means which object will create first, guys? B class or A class? B class or A class?
B
Tell me,
class.
guys. Yeah. So see, let me put that here as well. Okay. So let's take an example. So class A. Okay. So class A we have. Okay. And also we have the class B. Okay. Class B. Something for what? Void display method. Something the display method is there. Okay. So this is the B class. This is the B class, and where you are going to have for what? One Java method under this B class. Okay. So now A class requires for what? B class services. A class requires for what? B class services. I'm going to create an object of B class or not here. Tell me, guys. I'm going to create an object of B class inside the A class or not? Why? Because A class requires the services of which class? A class requires the services of which class? B class. So why? Because A class wanted to call the display method of B class, guys. That is the reason we wanted to create an object of B class here, and then you need to call the method called B dot display method. Agree or not? Agree or not?
Yes, sir.
Come on. Yes. A class requires what object? B class object. Because B class display method wanted to access for what? A class. Now tell me, so which class will be the main class and which class will be the dependent class? Can you guys please confirm? Which class will
B
be the
class
main
is
class?
the main class.
Which class will be the main class and which class will be the dependent class?
A class is the main class, B class is the dependent class.
Correct. Correct.
A
So
class is
here,
the main class.
correct. A class is a main class, we can say. Okay. And B class is okay. So B class is for what? Dependent class. Dependent class. Now tell me, in the normal core Java approach, tell me which class object will be created first. Whenever A class is
B class.
depending upon the B class means, tell me, so how the which object will be created first, B class or A class?
B class.
B class. Are you sure about it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. Your answer is correct, sir. So whenever the A class is depending upon the B class means, first it will create the dependent object. So first it will create the dependent object, then only it will create for what? Then only it will create for what? Main object of A class. Simple. Understand, guys? This is the normal core Java terminology I was talking about. There are the two classes are there in your project. One class requires the services of another class. In this process, you will be creating an object of dependent class inside the main class. In such a scenario, The JVM will always creates an object of dependent class and then followed with what? Main class. Hope you guys are comfortable. Hope you guys are comfortable up to now,
Yes, sir.
whatever the points I have discussed here.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I'm not at all talking any kind of new points. These are the related to for what? Core Java. Understand? So thing here is class A is depending upon class B. Simple. Class A is depending upon class B. Simple. Understand? Class A is depending upon class B. Simple. How you are injecting the class B inside the class A? Using the new keyword. Simple. Okay. Yeah. So, here, who will be the responsible of creating the dependent class object? Dependent class object, guys. Who will be the responsible of creating the dependent class object, and who will inject the dependent object into the main object?
JVM.
So ultimately, the object creation will takes place by JVM. But so ultimately the B class object will be created by JVM, guys. Understand? Ultimately, the B class object will be created by JVM. So here, B class object is creating by whom? A class requires like as the B class services means programmer need to create an object explicitly or not?
Yes, of
Programmer
Yes,
course.
sir.
need to define that programmer need to create that the object explicitly or not. But whereas in the Spring framework, you no need to bother about these things. You just hand over these two classes to you just tell them to the Spring. Okay, Spring, I have a two classes with me. Okay, so whenever the class A is required, like as in the class B services, can you please inject the class B object into the A class or not? Can you please inject the class B into for what? Class A, so that I can access the services of B class inside the A class. Understand, guys? So see here, the point here is when it comes for the Spring framework, guys, you will be the having for what? Class A and class B. Okay, this is for what? Class A, and this is for what? Class B. Okay, what we will do is we will inform to the Spring. Okay, we will inform to the Spring, guys. We will inform to the Spring. Spring, I have a class A and I have a class B in my project. Okay, whenever the class A requires like as in the class B, okay, whenever the class A requires like as in the class B, guys, okay, please inject the class B into for what? Please inject that class B, please inject the class B object into for what? A class. So those things
Class
will
A.
be taken care by whom? Spring. Okay, so we are as a programmer responsibilities for what? Creating a independent classes for your project. Creating an independent classes for your project. You will hand over those classes to Spring. What the Spring will do? Spring will create an object of those classes. Whenever the A class requires like as in the B class, that B class object will be injected into A class. Understand, guys, everybody? So whenever the programmer created like as in the two new classes in your project, guys, he will inform to that he will inform to the Spring. Okay, Spring, I have like as the two classes with me. Can you please create an object of those two classes and inject that B class object into A class means? So those things will be done by whom? Spring container. Spring container creating the objects. Creating the objects. Spring container, Spring only will take care of creating an objects for A class and B class. Understand, guys, everybody? Spring container only will take care of creating an objects of for A class and B class. Spring only will take care of injecting the B class object into A class object. Understand, guys? Who will be the taking care everything here? Who will be taking
Spring
care
container.
everything here? Spring.
Spring
Okay,
container.
not see, I did not introduce the term called Spring container. Okay, so what the Spring will do for you, what the Spring will do for us is it will take care of creating an object of both classes, and whenever the A class requires like as in the B class, Spring only will take care of injecting the B class into the A class object. Understand guys, everybody? So now tell me, in the earlier core Java approach, who will be the responsible of creating the both classes guys? Programmer need to create an object. Programmer need to create an object of these two classes using the new keyword or not? Come on guys.
Yes.
Yes. And the programmer only need to inject like whenever the particular class object is required, means the such a kind of an objects need to create in the inside the main object or not? Yes. So but in this case, developer's burden will become, the developer burden has been reduced or not? Who will be the taking care of creating an objects? Spring. Spring will take care of creating an object of certain classes. Spring only will take care of injecting the certain class object into for dependent class object into for what? Main class. So that is the reason. So that is, this process is called as an for what? Dependency injection. The process of injecting the dependent object into the main object, okay, by the Spring container is called for what? Dependency injection guys. Dependency injection. Understand guys? Understand my point or not? Spring
Yes, sir.
supports for what? Spring supports for what? Dependency injection guys. What do you mean that? What do you mean that? Dependency injection is a process of creating an objects and injecting such a objects by injecting that dependent object into the main object by the Spring container guys. That is called dependency injection. Understand guys? The process of injecting the dependent object into the main object by the Spring container is called dependency injection. Clear?
The process of
injecting the dependent object into the main object by the Spring container is called dependency injection. Okay, now the question may get into your mind, sir, as you are saying that, so the Spring is taking care of creating like as an objects of these both classes, and Spring will be the taking care of B class object into the A class. So those things will be done by whom, sir? Inversion of a control. So those things will be done by whom? Spring container guys. Spring will give the job to whom to do these activities? Spring will give this job to whom guys to do these activities? Come on guys. That is called Spring container. You people might heard about the container word, right or not? Servlet container and JSP container, right or not? Servlet container is responsibility is for what? Executing the servlet program. JSP container responsibility is for what? Executing the JSP program. Spring container responsibility is for what? Creating an object of a certain Spring classes and injecting that objects into for what? And injecting such objects into for what? Required classes guys. So these two jobs will be done by whom? Spring container guys. Understand guys, everybody? Come on guys, everybody in line with me? The process of injecting the dependent object into the main object by the Spring container is called what? Dependency injection. Clear?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine. Hope you guys are clear up to now. That is an importance of dependency injection guys. And what do you mean by an inversion of control, sir? That is called IOC. We can call it as an. Who will do all these things? Who will do all these things? Container. Container. That is also called as an for what? Inversion of control. Okay. Spring is going to be in the very, so Spring is for what? Spring is supporting the one of the most important feature of the Spring is for what? Dependency injection, sir. Dependency injection means you no need to worry about creating an object of certain classes in Spring framework. You no need to bother about injecting the objects into required classes. All these things will be taken care by Spring container behalf of the programmer. Simple as I can say. Okay. Slowly you will get to know all the things in the basic application, sir. Okay. So we are just in the introduction part. So just to try to understand and digest the details about these terminologies. The people who are already familiar with the Spring, so they know about like how the things will works. So the people who are not familiar about the Spring, just to try to digest these details. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So as I told you, the Spring is a lightweight framework, sir. Lightweight framework means in terms of for what? In terms of the container only, sir. Okay. So in when you guys are working with what servlet technology and the JSP technology, who will take care of initiating the servlet container and JSP container, guys? Tell me, guys, who will be the taking care of who will be taking care of initializing the servlet container and JSP container? Come on, guys. Tomcat server, right or not? So hope you guys have you worked with servlet technology and JSP technology or not, guys? Servlet technology is used for developing servlet container is used for what? Servlet container is helpful for executing the servlet programs. JSP container is used for what? Executing the JSP programs, right or not? And who will initialize those containers? Who will initialize those containers?
Tomcat.
Tomcat. So do we
Tomcat.
have any kind of the provision to initialize the container by the programmer?
No.
Do we have any provision to initialize such containers by the programmer? No. No.
No, sir. No,
No.
sir.
But whereas in the Spring framework, every Spring application will get executed by whom? Spring container, guys. Wherever you want to activate the Spring container, you can activate that Spring container, guys. Simple. Wherever you want to deactivate the Spring container, you can deactivate it. You can close the Spring container. Understand, guys? That is the reason behind the Spring framework will comes under the category of lightweight framework. You no need of extending any kind of predefined classes or interface to your certain Java classes. That is one of the reason behind the Spring is a lightweight framework. The second reason is so you can instantiate the Spring container wherever you want. Understand, guys? By creating a certain class objects, guys, of the Spring library, the Spring container will get initialized. Okay, once the Spring container get initialized means then Spring will take care of creating an objects of certain classes in your project, and Spring container will take care of injecting of dependent objects into the main class objects. Those things will be taken care by Spring. Hope you guys are comfortable. These are the most important the points in terms of the Spring framework, guys. Spring framework is for what? It is a Java based open source framework, guys. So why? Because you no need to you can download the Spring software very easily, and you no need to pay anything of that to download that software. Okay, and the source code is also exposed to the programmers. That is the one thing. By using the Spring framework, we can develop for what? So the Spring will comes under for what? Enterprise application development, case. Why? Because you can develop standalone applications, web applications, and distributed applications. Okay, Spring is a modularized framework. Why? Because Spring is having a lot of modules to develop the certain components of the project, guys. Okay, so Spring Core, Spring AOP, Spring MVC, Spring JDBC, Spring ORM, okay, Spring Transaction, okay, like that we have a several certain modules are there. So you can take the selective modules to develop the components of our project. Okay, yeah. So Spring is for what? Simplicities of POJOs. Whatever the classes you are going to build in the Spring framework, your classes is not at all to extend or implements any kind of classes from Spring library itself. Understand, guys? That is called simplicity of POJOs. Okay, Spring is very popular because of dependency injection. Why? Because so you no need of creating an objects of certain classes in the projects. So whenever you initiate the Spring container, sir, automatically the container will take care of creating an objects of certain classes in your project. Container only will take care of injecting the one class object into for what? So injecting the dependent objects into for what? Main class objects as well. So that is a principle of dependency injection. And Spring will becomes for what? Lightweight, because wherever you want to activate the Spring container, simply you can activate it by creating an objects of certain classes. So basically the Spring contains for what? Two containers, guys. One is for what? Bean factory container, and another one is for what? Bean factory container, guys. So that is BFC, that is Bean factory container, and application context container, sir. That is called AC. Okay, ACC. That is called application context container. So basically the Spring containers of two types. One is for what? Bean factory container. Another one is for what? Application context container, sir. These two containers can be activated at anywhere, at any place, anywhere in your Spring application. Simple. Understand, guys, everybody? Everybody is clear about the simple brief about the Spring framework?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Anybody having any questions so far? Anybody having
Sir,
any
what?
questions so far?
Sir, what POJO do?
So POJO is nothing. So see, POJO means it's a simple Java class, sir. So typically in your project requirements, based on your story, you will be creating a certain new classes, right? You will be creating a certain new classes, right or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Your class should be an independent to your functionality. You no need of extending any kind of predefined interface or a predefined class from Spring library itself. Okay. Spring is developed
sir.
based on for what? Simple POJOs.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So whatever the logic you want to implement, that should be for you can define in your Java class as an independent. You no need of extending or implementing any predefined class or interface from Spring library or any third-party library. Okay. Anybody
Yes, sir.
having any questions? Anybody having any questions so far? Are you guys good so far? Yeah. So let's come back to this next part. So see, guys, this is how like as in the Spring architecture, as I already told you guys, Spring is as in the modularized framework. Okay, modularized framework, guys. So that is the Spring core container. If you see here, core container, and we have the Spring core container, AOP, aspects, instrumentation, messaging, web, and data access or integrations such as JDBC, ORM, OXM, JMS, transactions. All these are nothing but for what? Submodules of Spring framework, guys. Okay. So out of all these modules, so these are the important modules for us. Understand? These are the very important modules for us. Spring Core, Spring Web, Spring DAO, Spring AOP. What is the importance of Spring Core, sir? So Spring Core is the base module for rest of other modules in the Spring framework. Spring Core is for what? Base module for rest of other modules in the Spring framework. Without learning, without knowing the knowledge of Spring Core module, you cannot learn rest of other modules in the Spring framework, guys. Because Spring Core is for what? Basic and fundamental module of Spring framework, guys. Why? Because in the Spring Core itself, we will be the talking about, okay, we will be the talking about how you can, what is the Spring Bean, okay, how you can create a container, what are the different containers are available in the Spring framework, how you can inject like one object to another object through dependency injections, that is called types of dependency injection, okay, auto wiring mechanism, stereotype annotations, okay, Spring expression language, all these things which will comes under for what? Spring core module, guys. Without knowing the core module, so you cannot learn rest of other modules in the Spring framework, guys. So that is the reason Spring core is for what? Base module base module for other modules, guys. In the Spring, guys, in the Spring core, which you will define as an for what? Spring Beans, Spring core functional, Spring core related functionalities, Spring context, Spring expression language. That is shortly we can call it as an for what? Spell. That is shortly we can call it as an for what? Spell. Okay. Yes. So after you are strong on the core container, guys, you can start to learn for what? In any module, in any order. Understand, guys? Okay. After learning this the core container, guys, you are eligible to understand rest of other modules in any order, sir. Okay. But ultimately the base module will be what? Core module. Without learning the core, you cannot start with what? Rest of other modules. Understand, guys? Understand. So Spring Core is for what? Developing the standalone applications. Spring Web is for what? Developing the web applications in the Spring framework. Spring Dove is for what? Developing the persistence logics of an application. Right or not? So developing the persistence logic. Persistence logic means the logic which interacts with the database software is called persistence logic. The logic which interacts with the database software is called persistence logic. Clear, guys, everybody? The logic which
Yes, sir.
interacts with the database software is called persistence logic. By using the Spring Core module, we can develop for what? Standalone applications. By using the Spring Web module, we can develop for what? Web applications. By using the Spring Dove module, which is used for developing for what? Persistence logic. Okay. By using the AOP, sir. AOP stands for what? Aspect oriented programming, sir. Okay, you people heard about several kinds of the programming: procedure oriented programming, object oriented programming. What do you mean by aspect oriented programming, sir? What do you mean by aspect oriented programming? So basically, whenever you are executing some sort of business services, you need to apply for what? Some secondary services, guys. So let's take a simple example of bank. Whenever you are withdrawing amount from the ATM, or whenever you guys are depositing the amount through CDS, so through the cash deposit emission, okay, as a programmer, you need to take care of applying some secondary services. What do you mean by secondary services, sir? While executing the business logic, sir, so we require some additional services to apply on top of business logic. Okay, on top of your business logic, such as security services, logging services, transaction services, mailing services. All these are secondary services which we need to apply, on top of your business logic. Understand, guys? Understand my point or not? Whenever you are withdrawing amount from an ATM, sir, as a programmer, you need to take care of applying some security services, as well as how much amount you have withdrawn from your account, that has to be logged in your logs. That is logging service. Okay. So when you are withdraw the amount, we would like to send an email notification to your register email ID. That is called email service. Understand, guys? All these are nothing but an secondary services or not? Security service, logging service, and so email service. These are the secondary services. These secondary services are not required for every business logic. Business logic means cash withdraw is one business logic. Cash deposit is for what? One business logic. Understand? Taking some insurance to your account is also for what? One business logic. So see, you cannot apply all these secondary services to all these business logics, guys. So some business logics requires some secondary services. Okay. So while executing of your business logic, some business logic requires for what? Secondary services. Some business logic doesn't requires for what? Secondary services. Okay, in order to apply these secondary services to your business services, Spring AOP is most suitable for that instead of object oriented programming. Understand, guys? Understand my point or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So you have for what? Some business services. Understand carefully, sir. You have some business services. Business services are nothing but for what? Cash withdrawal, Cash withdrawal is the one business service. Cash deposit. Cash deposit is also for what? One business service. Something for what? Taking insurance. So taking insurance for your account is also one business service. Okay. So let's put these business services aside. Okay. So we have some secondary services. So we have some secondary services, guys. Okay, we have some secondary services. What are the secondary services? Security service. Okay, the second one is for what? Logging service, right or not? Okay, third one is for what? Third one is for what? Transaction service. Okay, and the fourth one is for what? Email service, right or not? These are the these are the secondary services, guys. Okay, so these are the secondary services. In order to apply these secondary services to our business services, guys, so we have two models are there. Okay, in order to apply these secondary services to the business services, guys, we have two models are there. One is for what? One is for what? OOPS, that is called object oriented programming. Another one is for what? AOP. Aspect oriented programming, which is given by whom? Spring. Which is given by whom, guys? Spring framework. In order to apply the secondary services to the business services, AOP is the best suitable for us. Why? Because means as part of our business requirements, okay, some business services requires for what? Secondary services. Some business services doesn't requires for what? Secondary services. Understand my point, guys? Everybody. Every business method or every business service doesn't require the secondary services, guys. Some of the business services requires the secondary services. Some of the business services doesn't require secondary services. In such cases, EOP is most suitable for that requirement. Understand, guys? Everybody. Understand my point or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Hope you guys are comfortable or not. Hope you guys are comfortable or not, guys, up to now. That is an importance of AOP module, guys. So what are the main modules of Spring Framework? What are the main modules of Spring Framework, guys? Everybody, please answer this question. What are the main modules of Spring Framework?
Spring Core, Spring Web, Spring DAO, Spring AOP.
Spring
Yes.
AOP.
Yes. What do you mean? What is an importance of Spring Core module? What is an importance of Spring Core module? Which is the base module to learn for what? Rest of other modules in the Spring Framework. Can we learn the rest? Can we learn the Spring MVC straight away without knowing the core module knowledge?
No, sir.
No. So the base module is for what? Core module. Once you are good on the core module, you can start to learn for what? Rest of other modules in any order. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that is an importance of Spring Core. What do you mean by Spring Web? What do you mean by Spring Web? What is the purpose of Spring Web, guys?
For developing web applications.
For developing the web applications in the Spring Framework. Right. So what is an importance of Spring DAO? DAO stands for what?
Persistence logic, sir.
DAO stands for what? Data access object. Data access object. So by using the Spring DAO module, we can build for what? Persistence logic. What do you mean by persistence logic? What do you mean by persistence logic?
Database related operations.
Which
The
communicates with the DB. It
Ah.
is called as a persistence logic.
Correct. Correct. So the point here is the DAO stands for what? Data access object. By using the Spring DAO module, we can create a persistence logic, guys. Okay. So immediately the question may get into your mind. Sir, in Spring DAO, we have a lot of modules, right, sir? What is the importance of it? Data access or integration? Okay. JDBC means Spring JDBC, sir, which is an extension of JDBC technology. ORM means Spring ORM, sir. This is Spring ORM. Spring provided for what? ORM. So whatever the ORM frameworks are available in the market of JPA and Hibernate, Spring has provided an abstraction on top of it, guys. That is called Spring ORM. Okay. So this is for what? Object to XML mapping. So we have, so in order to convert a Java object into JSON object, sorry, in order to convert the Java object into XML or XML to Java object case, so we have a JAXB API. Spring has given for what? OXM module for that. Okay, and messaging services, Java messaging services we have. Okay, and all these things we can apply for what? Transactions. Transactions is the most important thing, guys, which we will be the learning the transactions in Spring Data API. Okay. Yes. So what is an importance of AOP module, guys? What is an importance of AOP module? What is an importance of AOP module? What is an importance of AOP module, guys?
Middleware services, sir.
To apply the secondary services to the business services. So does the business, all the business services require the secondary services? Does the business services requires all the secondary services every time?
Not sure.
No. So see, every business method, see, it is not at all mandatory to apply the secondary services to every business method, sir. Okay, some of the business methods requires the secondary services. Some of the business services doesn't requires for what? Secondary services. So in such cases, so which will be the suitable? Object oriented programming is suitable, or Spring provided AOP is suitable for that?
Spring provided.
Spring provided AOP is suitable for that. Why? Because means you can so which methods you want to apply the secondary services, for those particular methods only you can apply it. Okay, you can have a call on and off facility in the Spring AOP. Okay, that's all. Hope you guys are comfortable up to now.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, and as I told you guys, Spring Core module is the base module for remaining modules of Spring Framework. Spring Core is the central part of our Spring Framework to work with what? Spring Container. Okay. So, and Spring Core manages how the beans are created and how the beans are configured in the Spring application. This module makes the Spring application as in the lightweight by providing the loose coupling between the objects. Okay, so this module provides some services like dependency injection, email service, internationalization, AOP programming support, all these things which will done by Spring Core. Understand, guys? So the core container provide like as in the functionalities about the how the beans are get managed and how you can work with what container and how you can work with what context, which is nothing but an internationalization and email, and how you can work with what Spring expression language as well. Understand, guys? This is the simple brief about all these points about for what Spring Core module. Clear? Sir, as I already told you guys in my curriculum, okay, initially 1 week of sessions we will be talking about Spring Core module. Try to get some hands-on, try to get more insights of each and every topic of Spring Core module, guys. Understand? Okay. Anybody having any questions so far for today? Come on, guys. Anybody having any questions so far?
Sir, like AOP is used for secondary services.
Applying the
So,
secondary services to the business
yes.
services, sir.
Okay. So, may I know how the services are categorized as in secondary and primary?
Yeah, so the things is that is what I'm telling you, sir. Transaction services, email services, security services, logging services, all these are the core, all these are the secondary services, guys. So these secondary services are not at all required for every business service. So see, typically you guys are building for business logics, means the core logic of an application is called business logics.
Sir, 1 second. Core, like business means like where, like is that the part of core or container?
Business means, sorry, I couldn't get your question, sir.
Secondary has to go with the business services when you talk about the AOP, right?
Yes.
Secondary should attach with the business services, but it's not all time you said, Kala.
Yeah,
So,
yes.
like, what is meant by core then? what is mean by business, please? Ante like, are we taking from
business means see, business means nothing but an cash withdrawal is the one business operation. Cash deposit is the one business operation. Okay, applying an insurance for your account or taking an insurance for your account is the one business operation. Business means nothing but an the client will tell you the business. Okay, client will tell you the requirements. Okay, that requirements will be considering as and for what business.
The secondary we are applying.
Yes, we are applying. So client will not tell you the secondary services.
Yes.
Understand?
Okay, sir.
Client will not tell you the secondary services. So while applying the while withdrawing the cash from the ATM by the user, okay, you need to apply security, or you need to apply logging, you need to apply the transaction, you need to apply for what email. Client will not tell you about the secondary services. Okay, as a project development, you just need to apply this kind of the concerns. So this kind of the secondary services to the business services. Okay, this is for our program. This is for logging purpose. We just need to track on which date, on which time the amount has been withdrawn for that particular user. That is for logging. So, and you are applying like as in the security. So before withdrawing the amount, you will be the validating for what? You are validating the card. If the card is matched with what given password means, then I can apply for what? I can do for what? Further to do the transaction. Right or not?
Yes.
So yes. So while you are withdrawing the amount from the ATM, unfortunately the ATM machine has down. Tell me guys, during the transaction you have like as in 1 lakh amount in your 1 lakh amount in your account, and you are trying to draw for 80,000. Let's say for example for 80,000 you are trying to withdraw. So you have been entered the pin, and you have been entered that amount, and the machine is just counting the cash. So during that process the machine has been down due to some network issue or due to some power issue. So now tell me, you received the message from 80,000 from the bank, you have been withdraw, but you did not receive the cash from the mission, right? So immediately what you will do? Guys? You will just raise a complaint to the bank or not? You will raise a complaint to the bank or not? So the bank people, what they will do? They will verify that in the back end. So whether actually the cash has been received by the user or not. So if it is received means they will mark the transaction has been debited. If they are not received means then they will do what? Credited. Okay, automatically the transaction the amount will be credited to your account within the 3 working days. That's what they told you, right? So how it will be the happening means they will okay. Yes.
So
these are the secondary services guys, basically.
Reusable. They are usable as well. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. So this is all about for the today, guys. If anybody having any questions, please go ahead with your questions. So tomorrow I will talk about some more brief about the Spring Core module. Then we'll talk about Spring Container. Okay. And then we'll talk about Spring Container classes. And the next one is Spring configurations. All these things. Okay. Yeah. So that is what we are going to talk on the tomorrow, guys. Anybody having any questions? Hope you guys are understanding the things or not, guys, everybody.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So let me show you. I think so. I already showed you guys this part. So this is what, sir, some of the people are in the question having, so you guys are not talking about like as in the relationships. No worries. We'll be the talking about the relationships, guys. Okay. So 31 SBMS, the Springboot Microservices workspace, we have a relationships as well, sir. Okay. See guys, one-to-one unidirection, one-to-one bidirection, one-to-many unidirection, one-to-many bidirection. Understand? Relationships are there. Discussions. Okay. So all these are for what? Our examples in our workspace. Okay. So before talking about Spring REST module, I will talk about how the Java object can be converted into XML using JAXB API. Understand? How you can do the serialization, how you can convert the Java object into JSON and JSON to Java object, all these things which will be the talking about here. Okay. Understand, guys? Yeah. Fine. So that's all about our earlier workspace, guys. Okay, we'll be the creating the similar kind of the workspace for our batch as well. Okay, in the going forward. That's all, guys. That's all for the today. If anybody having any question, please go ahead with your questions. Anybody newly joined for today? Anybody newly joined for today, guys? Okay, then. So that's all, guys. That's all for the today. If anybody having any question, please go ahead with your question. Otherwise, I'm done from my side for today.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, as you said that because of Spring is a lightweight framework and it provides a loose coupling between the objects. So
Correct.
I just want to know the meaning of the word loose coupling.
Tomorrow I will talk
Okay,
about it,
sir.
sir. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Loose coupling in terms of for what? You no need to worry about creating an objects. You no need to worry
That
about
is
injecting that an
okay.
objects.
So dependency injection
Injection.
because of that.
Yes. That
That
is
is
the
what
loose
it is.
coupling. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So the people who are newly joined, guys, please collect that the links from the chat box to go through that last 2 days of sessions. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, guys. We'll meet you on the tomorrow session.
Sorry, sir. Loose coupling means whatever the core application that we are writing, like without container, is called loose coupling, kada.
Yeah, I will talk about these things in the tomorrow, sir, much detail, so that you will get the clarity. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Thank you, guys. We'll meet you on the tomorrow. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, sir.